Well, in the United States, we do not have debtors' prisons. They were outlawed in this country nearly 200 years ago, right? Well, actually, that may not be true. In fact, a number of new investigations are showing an increasing number of people are going to jail because of debts and fines that they cannot pay. In 1983, the U.S. Supreme Court made it clear that judges cannot send people to jail because they are too poor to pay their court fines. A judge must first consider whether the defendant has the ability to pay but willfully refuses. The Supreme Court did not tell courts how to determine what it means to willfully not pay. Well, NPR has now sampled records from Benton County, Washington. Over a 4-month period in 2013, those records show that on a typical day, a quarter of the people who were in jail for misdemeanor offenses were there because they had failed to pay their court fines and fees. Meanwhile, according to a report by PBS, as many as 1,000 people every month in Alabama are going to jail because they cannot afford to pay a fine. And many of these fines start out as minor traffic violations, and then through additional fines and fees, they grow to an unmanageable size. I was joined earlier by legal analyst Mychal Wilson, and I first asked him how this cycle starts off in the first place.
Yes, and a lot of these people are poor people, and maybe they've lost their job and they can't afford to pay. And frankly, it's a travesty, especially in light of what we've gone through as a country since 2007 with the Great Recession. I mean, this type of conduct by the courts needs to stop.
There's also this issue of payday loans not being paid back, and there's a group in Texas that's called Texas Appleseed. They report that 1,576 criminal complaints were issued against debtors in 8 Texas counties between the years 2012 and 2014. These complaints were often filed by courts with minimal review and based solely on the payday lender's word and frequently flimsy evidence. As a result, borrowers have been forced to repay at least $166,000. Mychal, it's against the law in Texas for criminal complaints to be used to push people to repay these loans, and yet people are still going to jail over it.
Right. Now, as a plaintiff's attorney, if I was in Texas, I'd be licking my chops on this one here. I mean, essentially, this is a situation in Texas. So it's illegal. It's a Class B misdemeanor to write a hot check, which is a bad check. However, under Texas law and also federal law, a bad check written for a payday loan is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So one cannot go to jail for that. But what happens is that if you can show fraud or other type of criminal activity, then the DA or the state prosecutor could prosecute criminally. So what happens is that these payday companies are basically, when the recipient of the loan does not repay, you have inflated interest rate, they're unable to pay, and then the payday companies, kind of what they do are shaking down these people by saying, hey, if you can't pay it, we're going to file criminal charges. So on the flip side, what should happen now is that the actual consumers should be filing lawsuits against the payday companies, and the state prosecutor should be going after these payday companies for criminal charges for fraud.
But of course, the people who use payday loans don't have the financial resources in most cases to legally go after somebody.
Yeah, but you know what? What you're speaking about, the amounts here, maybe sometimes it's $200, sometimes it's $300. So that would be actually small claims court. So they can go in themselves to small claims court and present the case to them, to the judge themselves, and they could come out on top. In fact, under the Fair Collections Debt Practices Act, these payday loan companies, when they actually go collect the debt, there's certain policies they have to adhere by, else the consumer can sue them and reach up to potential $200, $2,500 for infractions, etc.
Now, courts have also found that incarcerating people just in general for debts that they couldn't afford to pay violates the 14th Amendment. Further, it creates hardships for men and women who are already struggling to re-enter society. I mean, is this not creating, Mychal, this cycle of abuse of people where, they're already struggling financially, they end up in a position where they receive some kind of fine because of a traffic violation, they can't pay it, it grows, they go to jail, they come back out of jail, they don't have the money because they're now, have served jail time. Is it not creating this vicious cycle that people just can't get out of? Is that what we're creating here?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, for example, let's take the payday loan situation. I mean, it's almost kind of a usury laws where, you know, in violation where if you miss your payment, your interest rate, then, you know, I don't know what, depending on what company, sometimes it doubles, sometimes it triples. And so it becomes this vicious cycle that you'll never get out of debt, which is, to me, very anti-American. The other thing that's really disturbing, whether it's the payday loans or the court fines and people are going to, you know, debtors' prisons, is that this is a waste of the taxpayers' dollars. So that's your dollar, my dollar, everyone's, even the poor. Those who pay taxes, it's a waste of their money because we are paying, our taxes are going to pay for the state prosecutions, the DA prosecutions of these people, and it's totally unnecessary.
Well, and I understand certainly with the case of the payday loans, private companies, even if it's illegal, even if it's wrong for them to go after people, I can understand more them doing it than municipalities that are going after people and putting them in this system because once again, you know, it's over what? It's the desire to derive revenue from people, and it's just extracting them and bleeding them dry.
Right, and one example, the thing about the payday loans things, it's a lack of oversight by the government. So when a payday loan company, you know, if they have a consumer or a client who's not paying, they just file a complaint with a check at the DA's office. The DA assumes at that point on, you know, facially that it's fraud, it's a bad check. When, you know, these payday companies are supposed to show substantial evidence on, you know, why it should be criminal and not civil. So it's a waste of taxpayers' dollar just across the board.
Certainly so. Legal analyst Mychal Wilson, thank you so much for your insight and your time.